Welcome to this explainer. We're going to dive right into the fascinating ancient hardware of the human brain and uncover exactly how modern technology is basically hijacking our happiness. We often think of happiness as this elusive, almost mystical destination, right? But the research shows it is deeply rooted in our biology. It's this incredibly complex system of neurochemical rewards and punishments that evolved over millions of years. So today we're going to look at the original code our brains are running on and how the digital platforms we use every single day are acting a lot like malware, completely rewriting our baseline for joy. Let's kick things off with a provocative question to test our assumptions about what actually creates lasting joy. Picture this. You win the lottery tomorrow. Millions of dollars deposited right into your bank account. No more debt, endless vacations, literally the perfect house. Would you be happy forever? Well, your immediate instinct is probably to scream yes, absolutely. But as it turns out, science tells a remarkably different and honestly kind of counterintuitive story. Shockingly, empirical data shows that major life-altering events just don't dictate our long-term happiness. Back in a landmark 1978 study, researchers Philip Brickman and his colleagues interviewed both lottery winners and paralyzed accident victims. And what they found completely upended modern psychology. They discovered that after the initial massive impact of these extreme events, both groups eventually habituated. The lottery winners reported being no happier than a control group, and the accident victims drifted back to a surprisingly stable, average level of joy. Crazy, right? To understand exactly why our happiness fluctuates and resets like this, we need to look at the original biological code our brains are running on. Section 1, Evolutionary Purpose of Mood. Think about how our modern emotions actually evolved from the absolute most basic biological survival instincts. If you look at ancient, simple organisms, like nematodes, their nervous systems operate purely on reflexes. They move toward food, they run away from danger. It's a simple, if a bit boring life. But as evolution progressed to mammals, those basic reflexes just weren't flexible enough anymore. If you're chasing intelligent prey, you need a way more advanced strategy. So evolution developed what we call mood modules. In humans, those simple attraction and aversion reflexes evolved into a highly complex system of positive and negative affect. Pleasure and pain are essentially just the subjective, emotional values our brains assign to rewards and punishments, basically to guide our behavior. Here's where it gets really wild. Our positive moods are actually split into two entirely distinct modules that separated very early in the evolution of the nervous system. We have a seeking module and a liking module. The seeking module, that provides the drive, the wanting, the incentive to go out and literally search for rewards in our environment. The liking module, on the other hand, is the reinforcing feeling of pleasure we get when we actually consume or achieve that reward. And these two functions operate on totally different neurobiological circuits. Our brains are literally wired to compel us to hunt for reward and then give us a neurochemical payoff once we actually get it. But of course, there is a catch to this biological reward system. Section 2, the hedonic treadmill. The crucial point here is that our brains are actively designed to habituate to our circumstances. This is known as hedonic adaptation, or the hedonic treadmill. No matter how fast you run or how many incredibly great things happen to you, you basically stay in the exact same place emotionally. Whether you get a massive raise at work or buy a flashy new car, you experience a brief spike in your happiness, for sure. But then you desensitize. Your brain recalibrates to this new environment as your new neutral baseline. Biologically, this protects us from complacency. Think about it. If we were permanently satisfied, our ancient ancestors would have just stopped foraging for food and seeking shelter. But in the modern world, it makes lasting satisfaction incredibly difficult to hold on to. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept. Our adaptable brains are so unbelievably effective at resetting our baseline that we experience what social theorist Greg Easterbrook calls abundance denial. We actively construct these elaborate psychological rationales to feel deprived, even when we are sitting right in the middle of unprecedented historical abundance. Our brains are quite literally out there looking for problems to solve, just so that seeking module has something to do. So, keeping that evolutionary hardware in mind, the seeking, the liking, the hedonic treadmill, let's move on to Section 3, the social media hijack. We're going to see exactly how modern tech acts as malware, exploiting these exact evolutionary systems to keep us hooked. A really eye-opening, recent neurobiological meta-analysis published in Era's Journal of Medical Research details exactly how our digital environments are short-circuiting our ancient brain chemistry. The researchers synthesized years of data to look at exactly what happens to our neurotransmitters when we excessively use platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and X. And honestly, the results are a stark warning about how digital design mimics substance addiction. I absolutely love the breakdown of these chemicals because it cleanly maps out our core neurochemicals and reveals exactly how our devices hijack every single one of them. Take dopamine, our reward and seeking molecule. It gets hijacked by variable ratio reinforcement, basically the unpredictable nature of likes and notifications. Then there's serotonin, which regulates our mood and emotional control. That gets completely depleted through endless social comparison, cyberbullying, and the fear of missing out. And oxytocin, our essential social bonding hormone. It is severely disrupted because superficial digital contact simply does not trigger it the way real in-person contact does. Let's look closer at how this builds into a behavioral addiction. Social media deliberately uses unpredictable rewards. When you refresh your feed, you literally don't know if you're going to get a boring ad, hilarious video, or a notification. It mimics a slot machine perfectly. This recurrent overstimulation absolutely floods the mesolimbic dopamine system in your brain. Over time, your brain adapts by numbing your receptors. Just like building a tolerance to a drug, you now require massive amounts of digital stimulation just to feel a baseline level of normal pleasure, which totally kills your motivation for real-world offline activities. And what about our connections with others? Have you ever wondered why you can spend an hour interacting with hundreds of people on a screen and walk away feeling profoundly lonelier than when you started? It's because our ancient brains require true physical presence. We need eye contact, body language, synchronized interaction to actually release our bonding hormone, oxytocin. Digital communication entirely lacks this affective richness, so we end up substituting deep offline relationships with superficial online ones, chronically starving our brains of the stimulation we need to feel genuine trust and emotional intimacy. When our dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin levels are chronically disrupted like this, the resulting neurochemical load leads to severe, real-world consequences. We aren't just talking about a bad habit here. We're looking at a documented rise in major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder, particularly in really vulnerable adolescent brains. The constant digital stimulation spikes our cortisol, which is our major stress hormone. And most alarmingly, neuroimaging studies have shown that excessive internet and social media usage is actually correlated with a physical reduction in gray matter volume in areas of the brain connected to emotion regulation and decision-making. The hardware is physically changing.
Okay, so the hardware is ancient, and the modern software is exploiting it, but we are definitely not powerless. Section 4, Reclaiming Your Happiness Baseline. Let's talk solutions.
By following these science-backed steps from the meta-analysis, we can strategically reduce our screen time and naturally boost our healthy neurochemicals. Step 1 is actively pursuing digital literacy. Just recognizing the neurobiology we've discussed today helps you realize when you're being played by a platform. Step 2 is to utilize platform nudges. Set those hard screen time limits and break reminders to interrupt those compulsive loops. Step 3 is absolutely crucial. Intentionally schedule in-person, physical interactions, exercise, and creative pursuits. This is the authentic way to naturally boost your serotonin and oxytocin. And finally, step 4, implement periodic digital detoxes. You have to give your dopamine receptors the silence they desperately need to resensitize and recover.
I really want to highlight this fantastic quote from evolutionary biologist Björn Grind. He writes that we must use cognitive interference to enhance the turn-off function of negative modules and exercise modules involved in positive feelings. What this brilliantly illustrates is that, unlike the nematode, who is just a complete slave to its reflexes, evolutionary biology has gifted us humans with consciousness. We possess the cognitive capacity to actively intervene. We can literally choose to recognize when a digital platform is overstimulating our negative comparison modules, physically turn it off, and intentionally exercise the real-world activities that bring us genuine joy. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Your brain is fundamentally wired to adapt to its environment, whether that's winning the lottery or staring at a glowing rectangle for 6 hours a day. Your biology will normalize whatever you feed it. So if you are basically guaranteed to adapt to your surroundings, the single most important question you can ask yourself right now is, what are you going to choose to adapt to today?